Of course, now that I believe I am streaming, everything is slowed down to the speed of molasses here on my computer. But we should pop up here in a minute on YouTube. And look at that. I'm waiting for it. I'm waiting for it. Of course, now there we are. I'm streaming. We're live. We're live, Adam. Okay. This was a mountain. It was a mountainous climb. Special thanks to one Josh Engel, who got us there. We're gonna see what happens here. I am on airplane mode. I am plugged into my router. We've got everything set. I'm looking over here at another channel or another screen because of the way things were set up. But we're gonna give this a whirl and see what goes on. So, with that, Adam, talk to me about last night. I went to bed early, around 10 o'clock, which was before the late games tipped off. I woke up around maybe 1:30, and they were still in the fourth quarter. It looked like there was a lot of points scored, and it looked like those nights went really long, according to my phone and my bleary eyes looking at it. How was last night's late games?
I didn't really pay that much attention because my night was pretty much over anyway. So I know that Golden State won on a tip-in at the end, but I didn't really follow that closely.
All right. It was. You said your night was over early. Whom were your disappointments?
Everyone in the Kings Pelicans game. Basically.
Yeah, that wasn't very fun. What we got a whole new series of stuff on tap here. I'm making sure I'm getting my stuff off the screen, so you guys should be able to see stuff. All right, we're going to be good here. We're going to talk about some strategy. We're going to talk about the games that are going on today. We've got a couple of new news updates, so I'm just going to hit those real quick here. We've got John Wall dealing with migraines. They expect him to play. That game is this evening, but he was not at the morning shoot-around. We have Dwight Howard still dealing with his bum issue. We've got DeLon Wright is likely going to be out with a groin injury. We do not know what is happening with OG Anunoby yet, but he did play last night. New one here for Orlando. Jonathan Simmons is going to be out personal. So that is a new one. In addition, in the Philadelphia side of that game, we've got Bayless, Chandler, and Muscala. First two are out. Muscala is doubtful. We do not have a Rondé Hollis-Jefferson update or a Chris Dunn update yet. Both of them were out for the birth of children. Then we've got the Miami Heat, who are ambulatory at best. No Waiters. Unlikely to get Winslow. Unlikely to get Wayne Ellington. No James Johnson. Let's see. Those were the main ones that are going to affect us today. Devin Harris and Harrison Barnes. Both still out.
DeAndre Ayton also questionable.
DeAndre Ayton questionable. Okay, that's one that we definitely want to look at as well. But let's kind of cruise along here. Yes, we might be running a little slow. We'll work on this. As long as you guys have the audio, you're going to be fine. Give me a thumbs up if you do have the audio. All right. If you don't, then that's going to be the problem. Because otherwise, just put us in the background here. And go about, you know what our beautiful faces look like. So check out there what you've got on your own worksheets, etc., and we should be good from that point there. All right, let's kind of cruise through game by game here, Adam, as we're doing our first look at the games. We did one last night, kind of a cold read of what was going on for the podcast. You guys can always find that on iTunes. It's also tweeted out on YouTube. The Osmo YouTube channel is one way to get a ton of content. The really good stuff's behind the paywall, but we'll get you started here with what we've got. All right, updating a few other injuries. Oh, Timothy Mozgov, that was another one. He is going to be out with a knee. I do see that since I took my notes this morning, Justice Winslow and Wayne Ellington have been ruled out respectively for Miami, and then Ayton is questionable. Emmanuel Mudiay is questionable. And that, I believe, is it. TJ Leaf still out with a sprained ankle. We've got that first game here. We've got a 214 over under. It's the Brooklyn. It's Indiana. We know we like to take centers against Brooklyn, Adam. That looks like it's still going to be a thing this season. But we've got Evan Turner. We've got Miles Turner, and we've got Mr. Sabonis, who are not able to coexist on the court at the same time. But I want to take one of them against Brooklyn. How should I approach something like that?
Yes, they actually played 4 or 5 minutes together last night, and that's good news going forward just because they're both productive players when they get minutes. And so the fact that they are at least playing alongside each other somewhat is nice. And last night it was against John Henson and Ersan Ilyasova is when Sabonis and Turner were on the floor together. So I think they'll probably be comfortable using that combination against Jarrett Allen and Jared Dudley for a few minutes as well. So I have Turner projected right now for 29, 30 minutes. I think Sabonis sees in the mid-20s. Both of them have extra upside because if one of them were to get in foul trouble, then the other one's going to see more playing time. So they're still not guys that I really want to play in the same lineup because I think that for either of them to truly hit a ceiling game, at least minutes-wise, I mean, obviously they can be very productive on a per-minute basis, but to hit a ceiling game minutes-wise, you probably need the other guy to kind of have a floor game minutes-wise. But I do think that either one is in line for, mid to upper 20s in minutes here and should be pretty productive.
All right. So chat, I'm going to be looking here at the YouTube one in addition to the Osmo Premium Slack chat for questions. We're going to just sort of, with our first show here, and I know there might be a little bit with frames dropping and such, but as long as you have our audio, you're going to be good. You're going to get the good stuff. We'll work into doing screen shares and all that fun stuff that Josh is very, very handy with. But in the meantime, we're going to get the information here. Now, one of the things that we want to look at first off here as things start are box scores. Now, you don't always want to be a box score watcher, particularly with the NBA. You need context because if you're just looking at somebody that scored 17 points that you weren't expecting to score 17 points, and they hit, a couple extra three-pointers, that may not be something that's replicable, not the three-pointers, but the attempts. And you got to know when they got those. So you want to look at something that's a game flow specific representation. And Popcorn Machine is probably one of the better ones. There are several others out there, NBA Rotation. I know you have a couple that you look at as well, Adam. But it's very important during this time of the year to figure out who is closing games. Now, that's something that's going to be kind of fluid as things go on, and it doesn't mean just closing when the games are close. You want to know what's happening when there's a dozen points or more towards the end of the game. You'll see a lot of the teams won't pull their starters until maybe there's 4, 3, 2 minutes left, which is something we tend to forget about a little bit, having just finished up the tanking season the last time we were playing DFS, etc. So these are the things that are very important because there's nothing more painful than rolling an exciting night out there with Hassan Whiteside, Adam, and then he doesn't play the last 9 minutes of a very close game for the Heat.
Yeah, I mean, trying to, especially big front court rotations now with positionless basketball and teams going smaller. I think that all the projection model, or so many projection models in NBA DFS are so good now. I think the biggest edge and the easiest way that you can create an edge for yourself by doing a little extra work is just going through, Popcorn Machine or NBA rotations, like you said, and trying to figure out where guys lost minutes for, random reasons like fouls or score or whatever, because most baseline projections and most minutes projections that people use basically pull from the prior game, and they, maybe add a few minutes if someone's in foul trouble, but they don't really go through and actually map out rotations and, who's going to play what positions and for how many minutes and stuff. And normally on a lot of slates, you can find a couple of guys that are kind of going overlooked by the field because they have them under projected by a few minutes, or they have them, projected to play a less efficient position for DFS production.
All right. The other thing that was very exciting about this matchup that's coming up tonight was Jarrett Allen. He had himself a game that now makes 2. Adam, is he someone that's going to be factoring into your plans? Because one of the things we liked to do last year was also take bigs against the Pacers. Is that something you see as a trend that can potentially continue this season?
Yeah, Jarrett Allen's looked really good in the preseason. He's looked really good in the regular season so far. And one thing that really stood out to me from Brooklyn is that, at least for right now, Kenny Atkinson's actually running a much tighter rotation than we normally see from Brooklyn. Hollis Jefferson being out obviously helps in that regard, but we saw, if you account for foul trouble last night, Karis LeVert easily could have played 34, 35 minutes. We got around 34 minutes from Russell and Jarrett Allen. This is a team that at times last year, basically no one was playing more than 30 minutes. So it makes a big difference for their upside. I like Allen a lot. And then I also like Karis LeVert. He's taken a huge step forward this year. He's being more assertive on the offensive end. His usage rate is higher, even playing alongside D'Angelo Russell, than it was last year. And he still picks up assists as well. He pretty much does everything when he's on the floor. He's playing big minutes, so I like him a lot. And then the extension of that is D'Angelo Russell. He's always someone that can, score at a high clip, but he has seen a hit in his usage and his assist percentage with Karis LeVert doing more with the ball in his hands. So I think that a lot of projections that I look at and my baselines, if I don't adjust them, are kind of over projecting Russell because of the usage monster he was last year. He's still a high usage guy, but I think he does take a hit with LeVert stepping up.
All right, they say we've got a little bit of an echo. I'm assuming that's coming from me because you are the one echoing, so I'm going to work through on that. I will work to keep the mute down when Adam is going on a little diatribe here. I have found that we have a consolidator for the chat, so I've just sent one message, and it's out there on Twitch, it's out there on YouTube, and it's out there on Periscope. Adam, I am confusing people all over the place. This is just absolutely beautiful. Is there anything else you want to cover with this Brooklyn-Indiana game?
Oladipo, I think, this is the best spot we've seen for Oladipo so far. He had a couple of tougher matchups in his first two games. This is a game where he should be able to, get out and run and play his style of basketball. I think he plays, big minutes here too. So I think that he's in the best spot that we've seen from him this year.
All right, moving along here to our next game. We've got Toronto. We've got Washington. Of course, we've mentioned that you and I are both Wizards fans. You from the area, me adopting them because the Seattle Supersonics are no more, and frankly, I live on the East Coast now, so no point in rooting for the ghost of another team. Toronto, a little bit intriguing. You guys can find me on Twitter. I'm going to, again, be playing Fred Van Vliet. I like to call him Fred Van Elite. He has been anything but elite thus far this season, but I will put out a little DraftKings contest that anyone can join in. We'll do a 20-man. It'll be for $1, and I'm going to keep doing that until I can actually win it with Fred Van Vliet on my lineup. I guarantee that I will be playing him tonight, and in any night he's on the slate until I win one of these damn contests. What do you think about the John Wall migraines? We haven't seen that really before from him. Do you think this is just he didn't really feel like doing shoot around and he'll be good to go today?
Yeah, he dealt with them last year too. I think he'll be fine. It was pretty accurate reporting on it last year, if I remember correctly, where it came out several times. He's dealing with migraines. He's expected to play, and then there was no issue. So I'm not factoring that in. I mean, obviously, keep an eye out and make sure that the status doesn't change during the day. But I still fully expect him to play here, and I'm not projecting him any differently than I would if I didn't know he was having migraines.
All right, it's good to know, and that's probably why I wasn't as worried about it, because it did not seem to impact as much. Percy Harvin is one of the guys that we're talking football, but he was a guy that dealt with migraines for many a season, both when he was with Minnesota and then with Seattle, and that was always frustrating. For those of you wondering why it's so slow, I don't know. I'm actually on airplane mode plugged into the router, so this is not a Wi-Fi issue, but I will have some assistance between now and next weekend, so if we can clear some of this fun stuff up. It's my first show running it as a producer. Perhaps I need a little bit of an upgrade on my equipment because the poor little fan just keeps running and running and running. For those of you that want to get a look behind the paywall here at awesemo.com, you can use the promo code NBA Strategy and get yourself 1 week free. A reminder that we do have some free NFL content that I wanted to point out on the front page. We have the London game is going off tomorrow morning, Sunday morning at 9:30 Eastern time. So that means it's 6:30 a.m. on the West Coast. You Easties know that those Westies are not going to be up at that time. There's a chance we could see a little bit of overlay in that. True overlay. I don't think either contest is going to fill. It's $200,000 on DraftKings, $100,000 on FanDuel. So if you want to get in on the fun, check out that article. We also have premium rankings from Osimo himself for that game. So if you are a premium member, you can take a look at that. All right, Adam, what do you think is going to happen with the rotation of the bigs? Be it Toronto, be it Washington. Is Joe Val going to start? Is it going to be Ibaka? What do you got here?
Yeah, I think this is some of the key news that I'm interested in finding out today, because both front court rotations are going to be an absolute pain in the ass to project all season long, because there are so many different ways that both of these teams can go, and I don't expect them to be particularly consistent with it from game to game. I do expect that in this game they'll kind of match up with each other. If Joe Val gets the start, I'm gonna obviously bump his minutes, but I'm also gonna bump Jan Mahinmi's minutes. Dwight Howard questionable. For the sake of analyzing this game, I'm assuming that Dwight sits, but that's obviously really big news. But if Valanciunas starts, I'm going to bump Jan Mahinmi minutes and assume that Mahinmi matches up with Valanciunas. But if they don't start Valanciunas, I'm going to operate under the assumption that you see more small ball from both teams, and you get more Markieff Morris at the center, you get more Jason Smith, you get more Jeff Green, and the rotation of stretch fours that Washington has. So that's something that I think is going to be really, really important to pay attention to as the day goes on. If it does look like the game's going to go small, I do expect Morris to be the biggest beneficiary. Last year, overall, he averaged about 0.85 DraftKings points per minute, but when he was playing center, he averaged over 1 fantasy point per minute. So as long as he can stay out of foul trouble, I think that you see him play 30 to 32 very productive minutes if this game does go small.
All right, one request here from the chat. They do want me to ask you what your top play is from each team, since that's something that you and Josh have done previously. What do you have from this game? And then we can circle back on Indiana and Brooklyn.
So here, I don't really love much from this game. And like I said, there's a lot kind of influx with the lineups here. But Markieff Morris, I think, is likely to be my favorite play because he is cheap. He dealt with foul trouble in that game against Miami. Otherwise, I think he would have played around 32 minutes. And I think he can be productive in this spot. I think Bradley Beal's price tag is too low on DraftKings at only 6,600. And then Kawhi Leonard, obviously, got up 25 shots yesterday. It's a pretty nice matchup against Washington. He's still reasonably priced, at least on DraftKings at 8,400. Multi-position eligible, guard and forward, makes it easy to get him in the lineups. So it would be Kawhi from Toronto.
All right, I would definitely agree with that. They want my point and counterpoint. My two least favorite people to play on the Wizards are probably Bradley Beal and Markieff Morris, because I never seem to get either one of them right. Perfectly happy with them on my team. I get annoyed playing them because Markieff Morris sometimes likes to get in his own head and knock himself out of the game with the technical or foolishness more often than not. Beal just never seemed to get him right. He's a good player. He is a nice counterpart, a nice counterbalance to John Wall. Wall's probably my favorite guy to play on these teams. I'm not overly enamored with him at this moment, but those would be the three I'm looking at from the team. As we get more into the season, a lot of this is going to be price dependent. Wall is, reasonably priced at 8,500 on DraftKings, so as he starts to get up into the nines, that's when I'm not as excited about him, because he never seems to really go over 60 fantasy points, Adam. He has a nice rebounds, steals, obviously the assists, obviously the scoring, but oftentimes he can be finishing the third quarter with 40, 42 DraftKings points, and he only ends up with about 50, even though he plays in the fourth.
He's not he's not as volatile as a lot of the guys that are in his tier of players. And I think in tournaments, a lot of times that I agree with you, that makes it tough when he gets expensive, especially on slates where he's popular, because when you're talking about him at, like a $9,000 or a $9,500 price tag, when he's popular, it makes it really tough for him to, kind of end your night if you don't have him, because he just doesn't have that really wide range of outcomes that some of the other, star expensive players do. But at the same time, he does have a high floor. I mean, he's going to play around 36 minutes. He's going to get a ton of usage. He obviously is going to pick up assists. So he's still a good play. It's just that the ceiling isn't quite as high as some other similar players.
All right. And then the one guy I want to call out from Brooklyn is going to be Jarrett Allen. And this is a Yahoo specific play. I do like to play on Yahoo. It's hard to pop on over there and just immediately put in a lineup because their pricing is so different. And you'll find the obvious stars up at the top. You can live in that mid tier because they've got guys priced too high and too low all the time. They'll tighten up their low end, but right now the guy I want to call out is Jarrett Allen. Yesterday he was 13, today he's 14. 10 is the minimum. We usually don't see players get much over in the upper 50s. Maybe they get in the 60s if it's a cherry matchup. But tonight, for perspective, Harden's 53 over there. LeBron is 58. And then there'll be some mid-tier guys where you have, Chris Paul and Jimmy Butler, 35 and 36, but you got Hassan Whiteside at 24, Josh Richardson at 25. All of a sudden, Whiteside or Richardson, they're a third less. I mean, that $10 is a massive change. And if we get some people out, we know that Richardson's going to be handling the ball, or we decide that Whiteside is not going to take himself out in the fourth quarter, or the game flow is not going to take him out of the fourth quarter. All of a sudden, him at 24 is way better than some of these mid-30s guys. So it's an entirely different game over there. The other thing I enjoy about Yahoo, from a strategy perspective, there is no mass multi-entry. It's 10 max, whatever the contest is. You can't ever put in more than 10. So it's something I encourage those of you that are doing a little micro stakes gaming to investigate. Yeah, they've got the quarter games, the dollar games. They run them guaranteed. Oftentimes, if you get there before lock, you can be playing in a 50-50 or a 20-man that is only 70, 80% full. Rake over there is only 12%. So just pointing that out there for a little bit of strategy. Shall we move on to our next game here, Adam?
Yeah, Karis LeVert's my favorite play from Brooklyn, then Jarrett Allen, and I like Oladipo from Indiana.
It's early, but do you think that LeVert has actually put it all together? He had so many moments last year, but he would also disappear in prime moments as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's really talented. He's really athletic. He is able to facilitate on the offensive end as well as score, and he's, at least so far in the preseason and the regular season this year, being more assertive and playing with the ball in his hands more, even when he is alongside D'Angelo Russell. So I'm really optimistic about him because not only is he playing a bunch of minutes alongside Russell, but Spencer Dinwiddie's been playing a lot. And those are two guys that you would expect to potentially diminish LeVert's production because of their tendency to have the ball in their hands. But we haven't seen that happen. So I'm very, very optimistic about LeVert.
All right. In chat, we have one of the better names I've seen ever. No, it's not Jazz Dragon. It's Jizz Dragon. Oh, God. I hope you play... What is the game? Dungeons and Dragons or something like that. World of Warcraft is something that's got mythology and dragons. Because I'm sensing a fetish of sorts. In any event, let's continue on. We don't need to go that far off the rails. We are on air at noon on a Saturday, not midnight on a Saturday, Adam. So we need to take care. There could be children watching. Boston and New York. I don't know how many children are going to be watching this one because this feels like it's going to be a whooping from Boston taking out New York. The guy I'm curious about from your New York thoughts are what is going on with Enes Kanter. He's actually getting minutes. I don't think they're trying to tank. He's been unleashed, and he's been fantastic. How do you like him going against Horford this evening?
Yeah, I mean, always a really productive player when he gets the minutes, and like you said, he has been getting them. It's a little concerning. I think that he's on the second half of a back-to-back after playing big minutes last night, but he's such a high upside play that even if he sees 30, 31 minutes instead of 33 or 34, there's still a ceiling for him at a sub $7,000 price tag on DraftKings. I'm never really excited to take guys against Boston in general, just because it's such a good team defense and it's not a particularly fast-paced game I wouldn't expect, and there's a million other spots to go to. But the upside is certainly there. He's not someone that I would look to in cash in this spot.
All right, do we play cash? Here's the strategy. This is a loaded question. We, as in the two of us, don't, because I really don't. I'm still mucking around with the little multi-entry and getting some stuff going here. But Adam, you have a bit of a strategy here where you've been playing cash quite successfully, in DFS, and you've got a little bit of a new take on it this year. As I sit there and say, oh, good God, I hate all the overlap, you say bring it on. Bring it on. I like to know where the chalk guys are going to be.
What do I do?
You want to know where all the chalky players are in cash because you have a counter move that you're developing in cash games to get a leg up on these guys. Your pivot is what I'm talking about. How you find an equally priced guy that a lot of people do in tournaments, and you have been moving off of what campaign, your Cameron Payne versus what is his name, Bagley or whatever.
I mean, I haven't been doing that. I just think it's a good idea in 3-mans and 5-mans if you play them to. There's so much overlap in cash, especially later on in the season, that you can kind of give yourself 2-1 or 3-1 odds by playing similar, playing against guys with similar lineups. But I've just been playing like head-to-heads lately, and it's still soft enough early in the season that I'm just playing my best lineups in head-to-head.
And that's one thing that's a really good point. We've got probably 3 or 4 weeks before the easy-ish, and I use easy in quotes because there's a lot of good information out there, start to go away. And then it's savvy players going against savvy players. So you're going to want to be smart with your bankroll. You're going to want to know when the tide turns on that. So where things might be a little loosey-goosey at the moment, a little more overlay as they start to adjust the sizing of their contests. On all 4 of the main sites, Yahoo, FanDuel, Fantasy Draft, and DraftKings. Pick your spots wisely now, and then as you start to see things turn, don't be afraid to back off what you're doing because it's a long season. There's 180 days, and that's even before we get in playoffs of NBA out there. With regards to the Knicks, what do you think about their backcourt situation? Is there any? I thought Trey Burke was going to do a little more than he has. I know it's only been a couple games, but how are you reading the tea leaves there with Knox, Burke, and what's the kid's name? The young guy, Nicolina.
I think it's going to be a mess all season long because they just have so many bodies. I think that. Sorry, someone posted news in chat that I'm trying to read. I think that a lot of it's going to be dependent on how guys are playing. I think that when Kevin Knox plays well, you'll see more minutes. When he doesn't play well, you won't. And so it's going to be tough to predict. This isn't really a spot where I want to mess with it too much just because Boston is such a good team defense. Obviously, you're going to see huge usage from Tim Hardaway Jr., but it's not a spot where I expect him to be particularly efficient. He's priced up a little bit, so I'm not really interested in the Knicks outside of Cantor.
Is there anybody from Boston that you're interested at all with? They all are adequately priced, not a ton of screaming values, and they're all healthy. It's a large enough slate here that I don't foresee myself looking to any of these guys, but what is your opinion on the C's?
Yeah, nothing too exciting for me. They are coming off the back-to-back. They did play big minutes last night, so I think it's very reasonable to think that they could back off a little bit. You had Tatum play around 35 minutes last night. Kyrie played 34. It is a decent spot, I think, for them, but nothing more than secondary option.
All right. If you do like Cantor, he is 25 over there on Yahoo. And that's the tough thing about Yahoo is you can only play 2 centers, and they usually seemingly have their cheaper guys, and it gets tough because you have one flex spot and one center, and it's a unique construction, and they have Anthony Davis as a center, which makes things a little bit tricky there from time to time. So you got to get savvy over there on how to find the really good value. The news that we have here that looks like it was dropped in chat, Adam, is that Mo Bamba is going to be out with a wrist injury. And we're talking Orlando and Philly here. What do you like here? Does that boost or decrease the value of, say, Embiid or Vucevic? We talked a little bit about Vucevic last night, losing minutes to the youngster.
Yeah, I think, and I'm still waiting to see that confirmed. I don't trust it just because FanDuel posted it. But if Bamba is out, that is a boost for both Embiid and Vucevic, I think, because I actually expected this to be a spot where Bamba stole some minutes from Vucevic for defensive reasons because Vucevic is probably going to get eaten alive by Joel Embiid. But if Bamba's not out there, that's less of a concern. I expect Vucevic would just stay on the floor for his offensive prowess, and they'll suck it up with what he does on the defensive end. But it also should make Embiid more efficient. Not that I'm concerned about any defensive matchup for Embiid, but it's not going to hurt. So I do think that this is good news for both of those guys. And we actually have Vucevic at a discounted price point as well. He's down to 7,200 on DraftKings, which was going to be kind of tough because of thinking that Bamba could take some minutes from him. But if he's more likely to play 32, 33 minutes now than 28, I think that's a really, really nice price tag.
All right, looking to the other side here, any thoughts on a Dario Saric, a Robert Covington, some of the guys that might get a little bit more run in this one where we have Philadelphia favored by 13 points?
Yeah, the Philly guys have been cheap all season long. Their price tags are finally starting to come up a little bit, but they're still, pretty nice plays. Saric, I think, should play, 30 to 32 minutes, assuming the game stays competitive, which I don't bother making assumptions that it doesn't, for various reasons. But Saric, in a competitive game plays, 30, 32 minutes. Covington should see 36. They're both reasonably priced. Obviously, Simmons and Embiid are absolutely phenomenal, and their price tags are still manageable for what they do as well. The one spot where I do think, kind of considering the competitiveness of the game comes into play, is with Markelle Fultz versus JJ Redick. If you have a lineup where it benefits you for the game to be competitive, say you have a couple of, you have Aaron Gordon, Vucevic, Embiid, Simmons, just, hypothetically, then I think JJ Redick is a better play than Fultz, because in competitive games, I expect Redick to play more minutes and to close out the games, start the second half and then close out the fourth quarter. In games that are not competitive, I expect that Fultz will get a bunch of fourth quarter minutes to try and get his confidence up, try and get him to figure out how to be good at basketball again. And, kind of like we saw against Chicago, where he was underperforming again, and then he got there in garbage time, basically, because there's no reason for the Sixers not to get him as many garbage time minutes as they can at this point. So if you have, a lineup where you don't really have pieces from this game and a blowout here wouldn't hurt you, then I think Fultz is the preferred option over Redick.
Let's talk about discount dandies. I would probably only do this on DraftKings, where the floor goes a little bit lower. I'd rather go different directions on FanDuel, but Landry Shamet is 30. Where is he? 3,800, 3,400 on DraftKings. Now, his first game, I actually did play him because that was that 2-game opening night slate. He didn't do a whole lot. He had 12 minutes and just kind of disappointed across the board. The last game, obviously a little bit of garbage time, but 30 minutes, filled the stat sheet, Adam, dropped all his points on three-pointers. So he got 4 3-pointers, 4 rebounds, assists, 2 blocks, or 2 steals, and a block. Not too shabby. How deep do you have to get on a slate like this where you're, and I know you don't like to project blowouts, but where you're looking for a little bit of an advantage? Do you think someone at 3,400 on DraftKings like Shamet would be in play?
I don't really plan on it. I mean, it's a 10-game slate, and there's going to be, I don't think you're going to need to go that deep. I haven't projected to play around 20 minutes, but I think that his minutes are going to be volatile as well, because I'm not convinced that Philadelphia is going to just completely cut TJ McConnell, basically out of the rotation like they did against Chicago. So I think his minutes are really volatile. Obviously, he could play, big minutes in a blowout, but even in that game, it still just, feels like point chasing when the guy shoots 57% from 3 and picks up 3 steals and blocks. So it's just so unlikely that he actually gives you a productive score. And more often than not, you're kind of just wasting a spot on your roster.
All right, favorite plays from this game. For me, it's probably going to be Saric or Covington on DraftKings.
Yeah, I mean, Embiid, Simmons. I think Embiid and Simmons are still underpriced at 9,800 for Simmons and 10K for Embiid. I really like Vucevic's price tag at 7,200. I think that it's I think it's a really good price tag for him. And then you should get a little bit of a boost in minutes for Jonathan Isaac and Evan Fournier with Simmons and Bamba out.
All right. Again, keep an eye on that Mo Bamba news. It does look like
Jonathan Isaac, I think, is a really good value play at 4,200.
Here's news and notes on him. He's out for personal.
Jonathan Isaac?
I believe so.
Jonathan Simmons.
Oh, Jonathan Simmons, you're right. Gosh darn it, I got those guys backwards, didn't I? The Jonathans. Why are they doing this to me? Why are they doing this to me? All right, on to our next game here, and I'm just going to double check to make sure I am correct because I don't want to mislead anybody. We've got Detroit and Chicago. Andre Drummond is just getting it done. Blake Griffin looking phenomenal. Bobby Portis, as we mentioned last night, has been free. He's actually a center over there on Yahoo. Again, Yahoo, a different animal. Just saying there's different ways to get there. Zach Attack looking solid. I like those guys the best. Potentially, we have Cam Payne again. We know that Denzel Valentine is going to be out. You kind of like Blakeney. Talk us through how you're going to approach this. Is this one where you'd like to play at least one player on each side for a little synergy?
I think this one is interesting. I'm really, really interested to see when ownership projections come out, what ownership is looking like on the Chicago backcourt. Because Cam Payne was absolutely atrocious last game at 60-70% ownership. But if Chris Dunn is out, then you're still looking at a backcourt or point guard rotation that is Cam Payne and Ryan Arcia-Diacono. Like Antonio Blakeney, even though he's listed as a point guard, he played like 2 point guard minutes in that game. Most of his time came at the 2. So while Blakeney, I thought last game was a really good, tournament pivot just because he was going to play, low to mid 20s and he can score at low ownership. If people are going to chase those points, I'm not completely sold on him getting, huge minutes again because of the fact that he didn't really play any point guard in that game. And in a competitive game, he's not going to take minutes away from Zach LaVine at the 2. He can play alongside him some, but it's just that in a competitive game, I think Blakeney's more likely to see like 22 minutes than he is to see 28 or 30, and so then you go back to the point guard position and Arcia-Diacono, which I don't know how to pronounce obviously, but he played really well in the last game. He was very, very productive, but it's not like this guy's a really good. It's not like he's better than Cameron Payne. They're both just mediocre players, and so if Cameron Payne does get the start, I'm not gonna expect him to play absolutely awful and play one stretch into the third quarter and never come back into the game again. I'm going to project him to play, upper 20s, maybe 30 minutes. And that would make him a really good value play, especially if people are scared off. So it's a really volatile backcourt because none of these guys are particularly good, but there are minutes here. And I think that kind of just getting away from the field, doing the opposite of what the field does in tournaments with them is probably going to be a good approach.
We can just cross Tyler Ulis off of this pool though, right?
He didn't play last game.
Okay, good. Keep him out of my world. Again, we'll have to see. A lot of that can go out the window if Chris Dunn is back. Again, he was attending to the birth of his son, so congratulations to him and his family. Detroit is going to be the source of my favorite play of the game. For me, it's going to be Andre Drummond. If you were ranking the 2, would it be Drummond or Embiid on DraftKings? Just $300 separating them.
I'm pretty sure I have Embiid projected higher.
All right. Anything else from this contest?
Yeah. So I do like Drummond. It's just that the price tag, there's a few guys around him that I like a little bit more. I like Blake Griffin. I like Reggie Jackson played like mid-30s in minutes against Brooklyn in their last game. So I think you can look there. Stanley Johnson and Reggie Bullock are both back and starting. So you'll see minutes go away for a lot of the guys that were getting big minutes on the wings. But I don't think it should really affect the DFS relevant players that much. But on the Chicago side, I think that there are still a couple of other interesting plays. Like Bobby Portis has been fantastic. And he's someone that always produces when he's on the floor. He's still relatively inexpensive. I think he should play mid-30s as long as he can stay out of foul trouble. So he's a good play, I think. Wendell Carter is really interesting to me at $4,000 on DraftKings. He got in foul trouble early against Embiid, which isn't really surprising. But in tournaments, I'm willing to take on risk of a guy getting in foul trouble when he's only $4,000. And when I think if he does stay on the floor, he plays 28 to 30 minutes here. And it's just a really nice price tag for him. So I like Wendell Carter in tournaments quite a bit. And then Zach LaVine, obviously, is just an absolute usage monster with this team. He's still only 6,900. The minutes are going to be there. He's going to shoot as much as he possibly can. I think this is a game that has a lot of good fantasy plays, even though it's going to be an awful game to watch.
All right. Are you willing? And I'm seeing kind of in Slack, and I was kind of alluding to maybe a couple cheap guys on either side of this to work in some of the top end plays.
Yeah. I mean, I think that Carter's really underpriced. I think that, yeah, I mean, Payne's underpriced, or whoever starts at point guard is underpriced. Just Holiday, even at 4,300, he's a guy that I hate to roster because I don't think his ceiling's that high, but he's cheap. There's a lot of spots you can go to here. Also, pulling up the price tag now, if you have Reggie Bullock starting, it's a spot where I think he could be productive as well if he plays around 30 minutes. He's only $4,400. I think that's a reasonable play too.
All right. Little strategy, little theory. Some guys are asking, do you care if a player's usage is low, but they are getting close to 30 minutes? We can kind of call that the Langston Galloway effect. I'm not usually a fan of it because the upside just isn't there, in my opinion, if it's somebody that steadily gets those kind of minutes.
Yeah, I mean, usage is super important. Just standing on the floor, standing in the corner for 30 minutes doesn't do you any good. So, yeah, it makes a big difference.
Do you lean more on usage, or have you switched to what they call true usage now, which eliminates some of the negative conditions, I guess?
Both, but yeah, I mean, usage is still normally the easier one to find and the quicker one to look at. It has some negatives, but I still mostly just use usage because it's good enough.
All right, let's move. Top play of this game, sir.
There's a lot of them. Wendell Carter, I'll probably have a good amount of in tournaments. I like Zach LaVine a lot. Drummond, if you can afford him, but I prefer Embiid and I prefer Jokic.
All right, moving along. We have a 219.5 over under. Good God, I'm talking Charlotte. I'm talking Miami. Do you remember the last time either of these teams was involved together in a game with nearly a 220 over under?
Yeah, that's a pretty weird total. I guess it's because Charlotte's been playing small and Miami could end up going small here too.
I'm confirming it now on multiple sites just to make sure that Yahoo wasn't pulling something incorrect. And no, it is 219, 218.5, or 219.5, depending on your site of choice to find that sort of information. Wow. That was something I was not expecting. Of course, we know Kemba Walker is pretty good. Normally, we don't want to have him go in games against a team like Miami that usually slows things down. But as Adam alluded to, they are not necessarily slowing things down because of some of the key players that they are missing. Again, that would be Waiters and James Johnson are both out, and then Winslow and Ellington are likely out. That's going to make some room for someone like Josh Richardson to do well. I do like him on the Heat. And then wait for it, as he was the man who wears many hats, Josh Engelman, as he was helping me get my tech ready for today, was pontificating, is it going to be a Dwayne Wade kind of night? Adam, take it from here.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is another game that the front court is going to dictate a lot in terms of how rotations go, and it's going to be tough to predict. So basically what you're going to want to do is just make sure that your lineups correlate with each other. Cody Zeller, I think, could play 30 minutes in this spot against Whiteside, and that would be nice from a price point on Zeller, and Whiteside's just really underpriced at 6,700 on DraftKings, so he has a ton of upside anyway. So those guys, I think, positively correlate. But then there's also a chance. I mean, we saw Charlotte go small the other day and play Nick Batum at center, and if they do that, Whiteside's not going to be able to stay on the floor. You're going to see, Kelly Olynyk or Bam Adebayo at center, and that would obviously benefit them. So I don't want Whiteside, because of the way Miami has been running their rotations, I don't want Whiteside, Adebayo, or Olynyk in lineups with each other. At most, I want one of them, because Olynyk and Adebayo have not been playing much time at the four. So basically, Derrick Jones is starting at the four, and barring foul trouble, Derrick Jones should play 30, 32 minutes at the four. And then Olynyk basically is playing like the backup power forward minutes. Adebayo is playing backup center. And so if Whiteside plays his full allotment of minutes, neither of them really have a path to minutes with the way they're running their rotation. If Whiteside were to play on the lower end, then one of them is likely to see a bit more time. So I like Whiteside a lot. I love Derrick Jones here. I was high on him last game. We saw his minutes, him play a little bit more, but he still was in foul trouble in the game against Washington. He's been in foul trouble in both games this season, but he appears like he's going to play 30 or 32 minutes if he can stay out of foul trouble. And he's playing at power forward, which is more productive than when he played, out on the wing last year. There's more rebounding chances. He's closer to the basket to score, etc. And he's still really, really cheap. He's someone that I expect to, again, kind of go under projected today because people are going to project him for 24, 25 minutes and less production than he's likely to get when he is on the floor. So I think Derrick Jones is one of the best value plays on the slate. I absolutely love him. And then it's even more interesting because Rodney Magruder, who I also really like and who is locked into monster minutes, had a huge game his last time out. And so I think you're going to see a lot of ownership swing to Rodney Magruder because of that. And he's a really good play, but I don't think he's a huge upgrade over Derrick Jones, especially when you factor in an $800 price difference. So going maybe overweight on Derrick Jones and at the expense of Rodney Magruder in tournaments is probably going to be a good approach.
All right, here's another one where we're going to have to do a little bit of guessing. We have the Charlotte Hornets. Now, they had I don't know, what's the polite term, kicked the shit out of Orlando last night, 120-88. Nick Batum, who sometimes is a center now, played 30 minutes. That was the most. Kemba only had 27, but he still had 26 points, 5 assists, 2 boards, and a steal. So he had a decent night. And then the guy that I was hoping would do something that would be Malik Monk. And the something was shooting. He took the second most shots, 12 on the team. That's just behind Kemba's 16. Nobody else got more than 8. And he is someone that, depending on the site, if they're a little slow to price, I think he's intriguing. All that said, I don't know that I really want anybody anybody from the Hornets tonight because things just aren't quite settled yet outside of Batum for me, and that's in the hopes that they try to make Miami go small.
So yeah, a couple of things. For one, I don't like Malik Monk.
Okay.
Because I think his minutes have been completely just jacked up by rotation or by game flow the first 2 games. In the first game, he got extra minutes because Charlotte went on that run with the small ball lineup with Batum at center. I don't think the plan was for him to play a lot of those, that deep into the fourth quarter. And then yesterday, he got extra minutes in the blowout. He ended up coming in and playing 5 minutes at the end of the game alongside Miles Bridges, Dwayne Bacon, Frank Kaminsky, and Bismack Biyombo. Those aren't minutes that he's normally going to get. If you look at what he does in the first half and what his rotation was supposed to be yesterday, he's going to play 20, maybe 22 minutes in a normal game. So I think that the first 2 games are going to skew people's opinions of him. I think Jeremy Lamb's the better play out of the 2 of them. I know he's a little bit more expensive, but I think Lamb's the one that should play 30 to 32 minutes. So I like him more. Kemba Walker, I got on pretty late in the day yesterday once I dug in him a little bit more. He's played over 1,000 minutes since the start of last season without Dwight Howard on the floor. He has a 31.5% assist percentage and a 31.5% usage percentage. I had him projected for 48 or 49 fantasy points yesterday, and I felt kind of dumb for doing it when I saw he only got 39 until I realized he did that in 27 minutes. So I'm really high on Kemba. $7,600 price tag here on DraftKings, I think, is just way too low as well. That's going to make him one of my favorite plays on the slate. Just kind of looking at my baseline projections right now, I have him projected for 6.5 or 6 times his salary at a mid $7,000 price tag. That's really, really nice. And Batum also. Charlotte in general is just way too cheap. $5,600 for Batum, who I think also can play 34 to 36 minutes here. Is really nice. I mentioned Zeller at 4,200. I think has a path to 30 minutes. Charlotte's a really good spot, I think, to go after these other priced guys.
Yeah, and of course we always have to take pricing into account for the NBA on DFS. Looking at Yahoo, and I saw somebody saying, or a couple people in chat saying, why are we talking about Yahoo? I don't play there. It's just not exciting. And some people saying, well, I might want to try it out. I like it because it's different. People just can't up and translate their lineups and put them down there. If you become a little immersed in lineup construction there, you can actually have a little bit of an edge. Plus, a lot of their guaranteed contests don't fill. They're good with that. They just want to kind of maintain their current Yahoo season-long players, give them a little bit of an outlet to play until they figure out what the hell they're going to do with them. Of course, the Verizon deal, purchasing them, has made a mess of their internal structure there. I'm just giving you a little window into what is actually happening. So they're fine. They've got a certain budgeted amount of money that they're just going to keep cruising along with. We saw it in baseball where they called it Free Money Friday themselves, where they knew they were going to run a contest with at least 20 to 30% overlay. Saw them do it just giving away money for the first couple of weeks in football. They've tightened those things up just a little bit for football, but still, when you can only enter 10 in a contest, it's hard for that overlay to disappear quickly. And it is true overlay. They only have a 12% rake over there, so anything that is 88% or less is actually what is called overlay, meaning they are giving out more than they are taking in. The guys that I really do like over there are going to be Batum at 19, and I think Jeremy Lamb will get things going at some point, but he's just 16. Those guys give you a ton of flexibility. I'd rather go with those two for perspective than a Magruder at 12. Again, 10 is the floor there. Top play of this game, Adam.
Derrick Jones. There's a ton in this game. Derrick Jones is my favorite value play. At least, yeah, really in any format, but especially in tournaments, I think he's really going to go overlooked. I like Rodney Magruder a lot. I love Whiteside. I love Kemba. I love Batum. I like Zeller. There's a lot in this game, I think.
All right. Reminder, if you guys have not tried out Awesemo.com Premium, behind the paywall, we've got projections for all of the sports, and they are dialed in. Those are run mostly by Andrew, also known as Hot Magic, Andrew Barron, that is. So jump on into that. You get Awesemo, Alex Baker, but you guys know him as Awesemo. You get his proprietary projections, his ownership percentages. These have turned into be something that is pretty slick to use, particularly when you're playing something like NBA, where the herd gets incredibly strong, and you can find players that are just a little bit, and just the tiniest of worse spots that are going to be a quarter to a third as popular as some of these, quote, chalkier options. And if you get somebody like that that can outscore the other person, 50% of the time, it's better to look for those lower owned players. That's what we're talking about when we talk leverage. Use the promo code NBA Strategy. Get your first week for free. Only thing that is not included in that is the Fantasy Cruncher add-on. All right, Adam, we've got just a couple games left here. Minnesota and Dallas. Do you like angry Jimmy Butler? Is he potentially even better than angry Tom Brady?
I love Jimmy Butler. I like that people were kind of scared to play him, like he wasn't going to go out there and just go absolutely nuts. But yeah, Jimmy Butler. I mean, the minutes are going to be there. He obviously always plays a ton of minutes. He's a usage monster. There's nothing really not to like about Jimmy Butler.
I know there's one thing not to like about Jimmy Butler. When he's playing like this, Karl Anthony Towns is not going to get his, or so it seems. What's your approach with Anthony Towns until further notice?
Tournaments only, and not a ton of exposure to him. The price tag keeps dropping, which he's gonna occasionally and eventually have 50+ fantasy point games. He's just too good not to. But we saw him disappear alongside Butler fairly frequently last season, and there's no reason at this point to think that that's not going to happen now with everything going on there. We saw him take 6 shots before fouling out in the first game. I think he shot the ball 10 times last night. They closed with Derrick Rose over him for the last 3 minutes of the game, which is absolutely absurd, but it doesn't do anything to help Towns' value. So he's someone that if the price tag's dropping and people aren't playing him, I'll look to kind of force some in tournaments, not in the same lineup with Jimmy Butler. But overall, I'm just kind of ignoring him for the time being.
All right. From the Dallas side, we've got a lot of younger faces anyway, younger for the most part. They've got Doncic and Dennis Smith Jr., who are in the backcourt. We have new addition DeAndre Jordan, who is finally with them after a couple false starts. They have the venerable ones, Wesley Matthews, JJ Barea. Gosh, I just can't go there. No Dorian Finney-Smith for me. I think this is going to be a trio of people that I'm going to look to unless we get a bunch of injury news throughout the season. But for me, it's going to be Jordan, Doncic, and Dennis Smith as the only guys I ever consider. Should we be considering those guys this evening against the T-Wolves?
Yeah, I think that it's, a decent spot. I always like DeAndre Jordan. The issue is just that Jordan is like $800 more expensive than Whiteside on DraftKings. That's kind of tough to justify. Luka Doncic, I think, is a good play. He's still affordable at 6,600. Dennis Smith Jr. is also affordable, but they're still just kind of secondary plays for me. I think that there are other spots to go to. Like I would rather get Kemba for $1,000 more than Doncic if I can. Yeah, I don't know. The pricing on Dallas, I like the guys. I don't mind the matchup, but the pricing just seems a lot sharper on Dallas than it is for most teams on this slate.
It's kind of looking that way on Yahoo as well. Top play of the game, not named Jimmy Butler. Butler Jimmy?
Yeah, Luka Doncic, I guess. But yeah, I mean, Butler's my favorite. Derrick Rose, I think, is worth talking about for a second because he had a very good game yesterday. I was really high on him when I wrote my deep dive article, and then I kind of backed off of him as I went through their rotation again, and I realized that I thought he was going to play like 24 minutes instead of 30. So I backed off of him. He was still very efficient in those minutes, but I'm not really sold on him moving forward because he played, I think it was 24 minutes yesterday, and that a few of those were at the expense of Cat, in a closing lineup. That's not always going to happen. He piled up assists yesterday, which also isn't always going to happen. So I think that chasing Rose points here, he's still cheap. He still has upside. But if people are going to chase those points, then I think you can kind of look elsewhere. If they're not going to, then I still think you can mix him into some tournament lineups at 3,800.
All right, we've got three games left. We've got Phoenix and Denver, 224 over under. Normally that would have been just miles ahead of everybody else. It's actually not. It's the second highest score of the night, but we've got games checking in at 218, 219, 216, 220. Adam, top game of the night is 234. That's Houston in Los Angeles. Looking at Phoenix, looking at Denver, there are some tremendous plays up and down the board. I do like Gary Harris. I think he is often overlooked. I think 5,900 is quite intriguing there on DraftKings. I think Isaiah Cannon is not the worst of punts, but the one thing we're also going to want to remember is these guys are going up into altitude, into the Pepsi Center. Going to be a little tough on some of the Suns. Is that going to sway anything that you're doing tonight? Or does that just mean more offense for everybody because you got to catch your breath when you're on defense?
Yeah, I'm not factoring that in. The big news here, though, is obviously DeAndre Ayton. He's questionable for this game. If he plays, I think he's a phenomenal play at 7,200. He's another guy that I would rather play than DeAndre Jordan in that price range. If he doesn't play, it basically just makes a mess of the Phoenix front court. I think you'll see Rashawn Holmes pick up a bunch of minutes. I think you'll see Tyson Chandler play more minutes. That'll be something to keep an eye on. If my assumption will be whoever starts plays like 26 minutes, and whoever comes off the bench plays like 22 or something like that. But the big thing would be that if Ayton doesn't play, it's even more usage for guys like Devin Booker. So that's going to be, just huge news. Ayton's a really good play if he's in. I love Devin Booker here. He's got the ball in his hands a lot. He's playing in a backcourt, with Isaiah Cannon. So he's going to have the ball a lot. He's going to pick up assists. He's going to shoot a ton. He's going to probably, lead the team in minutes or come close to it. So I really, really like Booker quite a bit. Outside of that, not a whole lot that I like on Phoenix. Their rotation's been, pretty flat. I think Ariza could see around 35, 36 minutes, but at 5,500, I don't think there's a lot of excess value there. Josh Jackson's minutes have been hurt coming off the bench. Anderson and Warren, neither one really play enough minutes for me to be interested. So it's Booker and Ayton if Ayton plays from the Phoenix side. From the Denver side, obviously a really good matchup here. Mike Malone is known throughout DFS for running some pretty bad, awkward rotations for projection purposes, but so far he's been pretty normal. He's basically been 5 in, 5 out, and it's easy to figure out what's going on. So as of right now, it actually looks like a pretty clean-cut game there. Jokic, obviously the top play from Denver, should play mid-30s in minutes, should be very, very productive no matter who's on the floor at center for Phoenix. Will Barton is seemingly locked into big minutes. No Wilson Chandler there anymore is nice. So I think Barton in a game where he should be able to get out and run and do damage in transition makes for a really good play. Jamal Murray and Millsap and Harris are all good plays, but kind of secondary plays behind Jokic and Barton for me.
You know why his rotations are not quite as, and I liked how you phrased it. You didn't say bad, horrible, etc. I was going to go for the word unique. This year they're a little more normal because he doesn't have to justify why he is not playing Kenneth Faried, because Kenneth Faried is not on the team anymore. So.
The one thing I do like, and I kind of laughed at when I looked at the rotation, in the preseason, Malone stated that they would have a core rotation of Jokic, Barton, Murray, Millsap, Harris, Lyles, Morris, Plumlee, and then their ninth guy would be matchup dependent between Hernan Gomez, Craig, and Beasley, but that he only wanted to play 9 guys because he thinks having 10 guys is too much. In the first game, he played 10 guys, like not like blowout run for one of them. Just the standard rotation was 10 guys.
All right, do as I say, not as I do, I guess is. Oh wait, he doesn't do either. Anyway, all right, back to that. A couple questions here that have popped up in chat. Jamal Murray, is he a guy on your short list? And where would you rank Jokic versus Drummond? I know you've got Embiid up top.
Murray's definitely on my list. Like, I'll have some Murray, I would expect. He's not my favorite guy just because I love Kemba at only $1,000 more. I'm trying to pull up my point guard projections now just to see like who I have around him. I have Murray projected for basically the same as Doncic right now. I haven't finalized them, but Zach LaVine is in that range. Kemba is right there. So I do like Murray. I just think it's a really deep range, so it'll keep me from having maybe a ton of him. As far as you said, Drummond versus Jokic.
Correct.
Yeah. I actually have Jokic slightly ahead of Embiid in raw points right now. Again, I have some adjusting to do, but the point being that Jokic and Embiid I have basically neck and neck, and then Drummond is behind them.
All right. Again, over on Yahoo, and I'll explain why I'm talking about them in just a second, but DeAndre Ayton at 25 is awesome, but he's a center. Again, it's their centers seemingly have the screaming values, but you can only get 2 of them in your lineup. Otherwise, everything is more traditional over there. It's the same construction as DraftKings. It's just that all the value seems to hide at center. So I would definitely go with Ayton over somebody like Jokic because you're getting him at half the cost. So you really want to look at that. So why am I talking about Yahoo so much? Because it's winnable. So many of these other contests are not. Basketball is tougher and tougher. Yahoo only has a 12% rake. The other sites are up to 15 and 16 if you look at it through the various extensions that are out there. If you're not a math whiz and can't calculate it in your head. That is enough of a difference right now that we're kind of been bouncing around in the Slack chat that and this is the premium Slack chat where you get access to Adam, Fast Eddie Fear, Josh, Angle, all these guys. We're just talking intriguing stuff behind the scenes. I scrolled up and was reading some conversations that Fast Eddie was having with some of the guys last night, saying that he thinks about 2 to 3% of all gamers are going to be profitable in NBA. Wow, that's not very many, and that's going to be hard to do and hard to be in that mix. A lot of that has to do with where the rake has gone. Back when the rake was 10 to 12%, that number probably would have been 5 to 7% of the people that are profitable. Hey, guess what? That's what the rake is over at Yahoo. Plus, most of their contests do not fill. Yes, some of them do some of the nights, but for more often than not, you're going to find a little bit of wiggle room in there, which helps you a bunch. There, 10 max. That's it. No uploading. You got to hand build this stuff, so you're not dealing with all the sharks. Yeah, you'll see them there, but they make silly mistakes all the time. They're just in there because they're taking advantage of the cheap stuff. To them, 10 entries in the bigger contest is a drop in the bucket. So they're just having one of their minions. I'm sure they're not loading the lineups into Yahoo, Adam. They've got somebody else doing it for them because, that's clicking buttons and they don't do that. But I'm just saying, if you want to live to survive and maybe profit and not have to deposit, you got to find the smaller sites like that. We don't have the small sites anymore. They've all been swallowed up or gone away. If you want to have a chance to win $25,000 with your $2, great. Go play at DraftKings, go play at Yahoo, and then you get to spend, 180 out of 180 nights bitching about how close you could have been. And you always are redepositing. Just my strategy, my take. And I like to survive. I like to have fun. So anyway, Adam, those guys can't be Papa Gates is not entering his own Yahoo lineups, right?
It would be a huge waste of time, I think, for him to be manually entering lineups on Yahoo.
Yes, I would get. They play. They're over there. I think they have a staff, a cast of thousands, if you will. Looping back to this evening, the 9:00 game, Denver, Phoenix. Top play of this game in your mind? I'm assuming Ayton if he's healthy.
Jokic and Ayton, and Booker.
Booker has looked really, really good. Do you think that point guard, he's going to survive at the point guard / combo guard?
Yep. Yeah. I love Booker for that reason. Ball should be in his hands. We know he's going to shoot, but he's just so productive when he's playing point guard.
All right. Have you done much FanDuel yet, or have you been mostly focusing on one site to get your process down after you knock the cobwebs off of 6 months of not doing DFS NBA?
Yeah, no, I've just been on DraftKings for mostly just because I've been producing so much content for Awesome Modes for the site this week that I just don't want to deal with trying to make good lineups on multiple sites.
All right, so that's going to gear my question. So by next week or a couple weeks in, Adam's going to be fully up and playing on multiple sites. We'll talk a little more about the dropping the low score. A lot of our shows have been talking about that. One question we did have earlier, Adam, is how have you looked at late swap this year? How would you approach it? How would you recommend others kind of utilize it as it's back? A lot of people haven't had the chance to use it for NBA. Just spend a moment or two talking about late swap.
So I think late swap, obviously, everyone's talked about how it's a disadvantage to casual players and it forces you to pay more attention after lock, which is obviously true. In cash games, if you're not going to be around to use late swap, I wouldn't play. Because for one, if you're playing head-to-heads or really anything, you should be, if your team's not doing well, you should be late swapping to try and give yourself a chance to win so that you're not blocked and you have no chance of profiting, obviously. So that's something you need to have time to do. But more than that, the people that are playing cash games are generally sharper people, and they generally are going to be taking it more seriously. And when there is news, they're going to be able to re-optimize their lineups, and they're going to be around to do that. So you're going to probably get your ass kicked in cash if you're not using late swap. In tournaments, you are still at a disadvantage if you're not using it. But the thing that I think kind of goes overlooked is that if you're a casual player who you're not trying to, you don't need to make income from DFS, you're not expecting to, but if you could win, enough money to buy a new car, that would be great. It's not very likely to impact you on a night-to-night basis. If you're it's so rare if you're throwing 5 lineups into a big tournament, there's only going to be a couple nights a season where you actually have a legitimate chance at winning. And the odds of that night being a night where there is actionable late swap news that affects a lineup around you and makes their lineup better is just really, really low. I think that you still have plenty of upside in tournaments if that's the way you approach DFS. If you are someone who takes it more seriously and you're max entering lineups and all of that, then yeah, you still obviously want to be around to make your lineups better with late news, but also because, and it's a mistake that I made at the end of preseason because I just wasn't thinking and still wasn't used to having late swap back. I had a bunch of lineups toward the top of a tournament and they all had, some combination of Joe Ingles and, someone else, but they were basically blocking each other. And what I should have done was just swapped off those guys to different combinations so that I wasn't blocking myself out. I didn't do that. It cost me money. That's the kind of thing that, if you are playing a bunch of lineups and you're going to end up in a position where you have similar builds, you're going to want to be around to basically unblock yourself and give yourself the best chance to get first in a tournament.
All right, let's move on here to our second to last game of the night. We have Portland hosting the San Antonio Spurs, 213 over under. Spurs are completely remade, not going to be playing quite as slow as they did once upon a time. LaMarcus Aldridge, wait a second, feels like he might be familiar with the shooting environment in Portland, Adam. Oh, that's right, it's revenge, baby! He's going back to where he started his career. I don't think it's revenge because he went to San Antonio and got paid. How can you be mad about it? Am I on mute? That was fun.
Yeah, I didn't know what happened.
Sorry about that. Portland, San Antonio. We don't need to repeat what I just said. 213.5 over under. We've got LaMarcus Aldridge going back to his old stomping grounds in a decent matchup. We have Yusuf Nurkic who is not having to deal with the awesome center defense. That could be a fun one. What are you looking at here from the second to last game of the evening?
LaMarcus Aldridge, DeMar DeRozan are obviously where you're going to start with San Antonio. This is another one where we want to pay attention to who is announced as the starting center. I'm expecting that it'll be Jakob Poeltl because, again, he's facing an active big in Yusuf Nurkic, and it'll make sense defensively, I think, to play Poeltl like they tried against Karl Anthony Towns. It failed miserably, but I'm assuming that will be the plan, is for Poeltl to play 22 to 24 minutes, Gasol play around 18, and then Aldridge soak up the rest of the minutes at the 5. Portland will most likely go small with their backup center, which should lead to a little bit of Aldridge time at the 5. Zach Collins played really, really well in the game against the Lakers. I expect him to get the backup 5 minutes here. I think he'll play around 22 minutes. I think Nurkic probably plays about 28. Collins plays the other 20 at center and then picks up a couple of minutes at the 4. So that's how I'm projecting the front court to go there. Aldridge is the guy that I like the most. I think the price tag's still appealing. You just have him in a spot where he can be very productive. DeMar DeRozan at 7,200, I think is really affordable. I would put him behind Aldridge though. And then from the Portland side, I'm not prioritizing anyone, I don't think, just because I think that there are better plays at every position on a point per dollar basis. But there's no questioning, Damian Lillard's upside. Should play around 36 minutes here. It's not the same Spurs defense that we've seen in the past. One thing that is notable from their first game is that CJ McCollum played no minutes with the second unit. Every single minute that CJ McCollum was on the floor, Dame Lillard was also on the floor. That is bad for CJ McConnell. He normally picks up a lot of production when he is playing with the second unit. If that's not going to happen, it's going to ding his production until it starts happening again. So I'm much lower on CJ McCollum, sorry, than Damian Lillard.
All right, I concur. Let's hit the last game of the night. Now this one's kind of intriguing because we have LeBron James going against James Harden. I do like LeBron. You mentioned on the podcast that when we were talking about it, you think there are some better point per dollar plays. I think the intriguing point per dollar plays on this one are going to be the Brandon Ingrams, Kyle Kuzmas, and Josh Harts of the world. For those of you that are doing a little bit of season long, I've got a couple remaining Pride leagues and money leagues left from the many I used to do, but I've went and picked up Josh Hart in all of them because he's healthy. The one thing that really hurt him last year was he was not healthy. He had 2 or 3 different injury stretches, but I think he is someone that is completely overlooked by people. Most of the leagues, he's only 20% owned. That is your season-long tip of the day. Adam, let's talk about the top-end guys first. And do you foresee any teams that you will be making outside of game stacks with Harden or LeBron?
Yeah, I mean, I would think that I have some. I haven't made my lineups yet, but I have them projected as, the 2 highest scorers on the slate. The problem is just that they're significantly more expensive than that kind of upper mid-range where you have, guys like Jokic and Devin Booker and, just all the guys we've talked about that are capable of going for 50 to 60 points. I think this is because of the presence of all of those guys. For Harden and James to really win you the slate, I think they have to go for like 65, 70 fantasy points. And that's asking a lot for either of them. I think the pace of this game should be really, really fast, which is nice. But you have LeBron with, a ton of ball handlers on this team, a ton of mouths to feed, still kind of getting acclimated. The ceiling's still there, but it's tougher to project him to actually hit it all that often. Not saying he can't. It's just tough to expect him to. And then James Harden, playing with Chris Paul, playing with Carmelo Anthony now, again, he can certainly put up a monster game, but I think he's more likely to end up in that, 55 to 60 point range than he is to just absolutely go nuts and put up, like an Anthony Davis 80-point game. So I think that I'll most likely end up targeting the cheaper pieces of this game. You mentioned Brandon Ingram, who I like quite a bit at 6,300. He's just looked really, really good. He's going to play with the ball. He's another guy that plays with the ball in his hand. He can do a little bit of everything. So, I like him. From the Rocket side, you have PJ Tucker, who he's not a very productive player on a per-minute basis, but it's kind of hard to see him not playing like 36 minutes in this game with all of the guys on the Lakers that he can be tasked with defending, starting with LeBron, but then also going to, the other productive wings that they have. Clint Capella, I think, should be very, very productive at a reasonable price tag as well. I think he should be able to play 30 minutes here. He's athletic enough to stay on the floor. So I think that this is a game where there's going to be a ton of points scored, obviously, but going to the mid-range, I think, gives you a little bit more upside than paying all the way up and forcing yourself onto a lineup that causes you to miss out on some of the other mid-range guys from other games that are in great spots.
All right, little paywall preview. If you haven't signed up yet for Osmo.com, reminder, you can use the promo code NBA Strategy, get all access 1 week for free. It's promo code NBA Strategy. The DraftKings most highly projected owned player. Now, these update throughout the day. This is the first look. They'll get fine-tuned. They've got a variety of ways that information is pulled in from other talents, Twitter activity, things like that, social media, etc. Their own projections, pricing. It's been actually relatively accurate throughout the day for NBA. Now, I always start out and look and laugh at the beginning, and then things tweak and get fine-tuned. So you want to look at it throughout the day. But the number one most projected owned player is Jabari Parker on DraftKings. Now, this makes sense. Small forward, power forward eligible, so you can play him, on 4 different slots, and he's only $5,000 in a decent matchup. Yes, he will be coming off the bench. Where do you think his ownership will end up? Right now it's at 59%. I'm guessing that will probably drop to about 35% by the time we get to lock.
I don't think it'll even be that high. It's a 10-game slate. There's plenty of plays. Parker's played absolutely awful. Like, he'll be popular, but I don't think he'll be that high. Normally, the way I use our projections is to go into them a lot closer to lock. They end up being much more accurate, though.
All right. I wanted to throw something out there. That one caught me off guard. Those update every couple hours, and then they happen more frequently in that last hour as the final news and notes come trickling in from the beat writers. Let's see. Anything else you want to mention from this particular game? Oh, you were playing some of it looks like we were getting, with the way the schedules are, some more of these 4-game slates, which I like. I hate that last couple of years they've chopped everything up into 2-game slates. I know the schedule's been friendly with that. I think they learned a little bit from baseball that people will play these 4-game ones. They're kind of a lot of fun. How did yours go last night?
I think I got my ass kicked and everything last night.
There you go.
I stacked the New Orleans game on basically every slate.
Okay. Well, it made sense. I mean, and these are the ones. Sometimes that play is going to work, sometimes it's not. It was the most popular one, so how do you beat somebody that's the more popular play if you're going to play the same players? You got to play more of them.
And the value guys in that game weren't even popular. Like, Bielitsa was, I think, 10% owned or something.
Really? Was that all?
Yeah. So, naturally, he picks up 3 fouls in 6 minutes.
That was a bummer. I forgot to export my lineups. That's something you don't want to do because it's no fun. Adam's learned that. I've learned that now. Fortunately, it wasn't a ton of dollars, but you can go find me in some of the contests down near the very bottom with the placeholder lineup. Very sad. Montreal Harrell. What? Bad placeholder lineup. But anyway, let me see here. Any final thoughts today? I know you'll be doing the deep dive article, which is going to be behind the paywall. We've got a few other things brewing that will be posted shortly. Free article for the London game that goes up at 9:30 a.m. tomorrow. Single game slate, NFL. Free article on the homepage. Check that out, and definitely keep an eye out for potential overlay. We'll have the Sunday Night Football article up later today. I'll be writing that after I have lunch. Final thoughts, Adam, before we get on out of here.
So yeah, I'll have the deep dive article up within the next couple of hours, but also for anyone who is a subscriber and is in our Slack chat, I pinned earlier today, I was up half the night going through rotations from previous games and getting my baseline minutes projections done. So I posted my Excel sheet with just my baseline minutes projections and pinned it in the basketball channel in Slack. So obviously they've already need to be changed a little bit because of news, but if you are a subscriber and you're in Slack, those are available to get you started.
Excellent. Look at that. Always value being added here at Osmo.com. All right, gamers. Ooh, I'm actually the one that's producing, so I'm going to close this down I have to look for the button here, Adam, because normally I just wait for the producer to tell me we're clear. But here we go. I'm going to click that button. You can find us on Twitter or, of course, in the Premium Slap on Twitter. It is Adam is at ShipMyMoneyDFS. I am at EMACDFS. And, of course, it is Awesemo_COM. Just think of Awesemo.com, but no dots on Twitter.